Happy Friday.
Hello. Happy Friday, everybody. Joe Balaguer, Jake Trowbridge. We are here for the Friday live stream with the Balaguer Guitar people. Let me turn my volume off on my computer. That was a mistake. So you may have heard some doubling there for a second because that's where I'm monitoring chat from. Speaking of chat, Tyler, Heavy Metal Forever, fam. Hell yeah, brother.
Yes.
Noobzor, who looks like Lauren. Yeah, what's up? Good to see you.
Hey, Lauren.
Mario, what's up, dude? Ding, ding. Church of the Balagarians is congregating. Never a dull moment with Mario. Always has our back. Good to see you, man. Kai, yo, what's up, dude? Gianluca, good to see you too, man. Not be able to stay and watch, but I will after the fact. Hell yeah, man. Good to see you, and thanks for dropping in just to say hi.
Yeah.
Be sure to check it out. We have a bunch of cool stuff we're going to talk about today. Dylan, yo. Ian, orange, even if it's in mango. Yeah, this finish is sick.
Guava.
We will definitely get to this in a bit. Yes, guava indeed, Lauren. Yeah, super rad. And thanks, Tyler. Sick riffing. Yeah, we were goofing off on that riff. It was sort of like we were back and forth on whether it was For Whom the Bell Toll E or Final Fantasy Fanfare Battle Music E.
Yes.
Getting that
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, so it's a fun riff, and we were jamming, and we sort of mixed up the rhythm stuff behind. But that is sort of, we chose that riff intentionally because a lot of what we're going to talk about today is around these two guitars, which are tuned the same, but you will notice that there is one major difference between them, and that is the number of telephone cables that we had to cut to fit on them. We will get to that as well. Excuse me. But Final Fantasy riffage, yeah. But to get to it, for anyone who doesn't know, again, Joe Balaguer, I'm Jake Trowbridge. We are at Balaguer Guitars, HQ in Pennsylvania. We do this every other Friday, and today is that Friday. So it's live stream time. And hope everyone's having a great week, and we're gonna hop into it. So we're gonna talk about all sorts of cool stuff today. We're gonna talk about the sale, which is going on right now, which we'll get to the details of in a sec. We're gonna give updates on all the runs, including this one. That's why Joe's playing this guitar. We're going to talk about new models that we dropped in the last week or so, both of which are super sick. Riffs on current models, but new models in and of themselves, which will be super fun. And we're going to talk about these. Like I said, the difference essentially between 6-string baritone and 7-string, and why you would choose one or the other, pros, cons, what's more subjective, what's more objective.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about all that stuff because if you don't know, on Facebook, we have the Balaguer Guitars discussion group, the BGFBDG. which is where we all hang. We chat spec with everyone. Anyone who joins the group can chat spec with us, hang out. We show off progress pics of everyone's builds. It's like a whole awesome community where all we do is nerd out on Balaguer and other gear. And
it's a great hang.
Really great. And we had someone post in the group this week. Shout out to Josh, who posted saying specifically, like, he got a conversation started about baritone scale 6s versus 7s. He wanted everyone's opinion, so everyone was jumping in with an opinion. I'm happy to say we've built a great community. They were all wholesome opinions, and it just got us sort of thinking about it. We've talked about it in the past in other live streams, sort of like tangentially, but probably worth talking about it a little more explicitly, especially now that we're on the YouTubes and people can always look it up later.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that later. That'll be the majority of what we talk about. First, the catch-up stuff. Yes. So the sale. Would you like to talk about the sale, Joe? It's a cool sale.
Yeah. So right now we are in the thick of it of our scary savings sale, which
might even say the thicket of it.
The thicket of it. We're doing 10% off site-wide. The coupon code is Scary Savings 10, and that is until the 1st of November. It also includes free black and orange finishes because we're in the spooky time of the year, and that just seemed like it fit.
The most wonderful time of the year.
That's right. So yeah, if you're looking to place a select custom order, buy one of the in-stock instruments, place an order for one of these bad boys, or just peruse the site for straps or merch or anything, that coupon code will be applicable across the board. So that is going until the 1st of November. So you have from now until the end of next week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone will know that we typically do little drops. This is the one for now. So if you're looking for something, if you're on the fence, it'll be a minute until something like this comes up again. So be sure to make it count while you got the time.
For sure.
But yes, 10% off basically everything, and then orange and black finishes are free. Anything spooky.
Yeah.
Lauren says spooky sale. Yeah, that's right. Kai says this is a conversation I'll be watching closely. We are not surprised, Kai, as we know you are an aficionado and
of the baritone.
Yeah, so I'm stoked that you're here. And Kai also participated very well in that conversation in the Facebook discussion group. He has a killer YouTube channel and knows a lot about baritones versus 7s, and the baritone thing is definitely his jam. So feel free.
Yeah, 2 baritone Balagers.
He does. And feel free to, Kai, by the way, drop your opinion in all this stuff, because we do want to hear what everybody else thinks. We're going to tell you what we think because we see them a lot. We have a lot of opinions. But, of course, if you disagree with us, tell us. If you agree with us, feel free to tell us. I like Real Gordo's on Team 6 or Team 7. I like that. Drop it in. Maybe your opinion will change by the end of today.
Yeah, you never
know. I'd be curious to know what everyone thinks. Do you feel tied to playing 6s? Do you feel tied to playing 7s? I'm personally more of a vampire guy. Werewolves are cool too. Are we bringing that back, like the team versus team thing? I won't go too far. Someone from Starbucks will sue me or something. I don't know. What was her name? Stephanie Meyer. She'll sue me.
I don't know. There's always that why not both type of opinion as well. Because, I think there's application for both.
Yes, which is largely what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Pros and cons of each, why you might play one. We both have owned and or own baritone 6s or 7s or baritone 7s. That's something we'll get into a little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about our experiences and why that matters.
For sure.
Yes, Mario, wanted to mention that whoever's been on the social media duties killing it. Seeing Balaguer everywhere.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
That is Devin Scheidaker, Artist Relations Extraordinaire, and myself.
Yes. I cannot take any credit for that. That's these guys. I'm just in the discussion group doing the easy stuff. And it is awesome. Seriously, they've done a killer job, and they deserve credit. So thank you for the shout-out, Mario. Oh, yeah, Kai, that's right. I forgot you got the KM7 in. I saw you post about that. And I definitely want to know what you think overall, because that's super rad. We like those guitars a lot. We like Schecter guitars, but specifically the KMs are like really bomb. Tyler, need a Canadian dealer if you don't yet. I'm sure you will. LOL.
We have one.
Yeah, we do. Check out Guitar Brando. Brandon Parento, who's a super rad guy, runs Guitar Brando. They're in Alberta. And it's yeah, go on the website. We have a dealer page on the website that shows all of our dealers. He's on there. I know he does a bunch of killer like shipping deals and stuff like that. So if you're in Canada and that's what you're looking for, definitely the move.
Yeah.
He stocks just about all of our stuff too. So
Yep.
you'll be in good hands with him. Actually talked to him on the phone earlier today. So shout out Brandon if you ever watch this.
Yeah.
But
and if you're on the separate coast, like Jake said, he can definitely get anything, across the continent for you.
Yeah, if you're in Ontario or Quebec or whatever, he can make all that stuff work. Like it's super easy for him. So definitely check it out. Yeah, you bet, dude. So other things, update time.
Yes.
TM.
Yeah.
Update time. So things, Espada Limited and Espada Ambient. If you go to the new 2024 runs on the website, you'll see that those have been available for pre-order for a while, as well as the Growler T-Bars and the Seraph USA Moderns. Those are all up there for pre-order. Much of them, or many of them, are sold out, but some of them aren't. So if you see any of this, or you see the Espada Limiteds, or you see the Espada Ambients, or the Seraph USAs, there are some available in some finishes of some orientations. Yeah. So be sure to check them out.
Go check it out for sure.
Yeah. Limiteds are our typical like solid body Espada that we do, just like a do everything machine. Ambient is more of a vintage spec. The Growler T-Bar, Tony Pizzuti's signature model. Tony Pizzuti used to play with The Word Alive. Now he plays in Sleeping with Sirens.
Yep.
He's an all-around amazing dude, and these guitars are super sick. We'll get to the specs in a bit, but you can look them up on the website as well.
Yeah.
And then we have a USA Series Seraph Modern that we're doing this year. So if you've been wanting a USA Balaguer and either you missed the Espada USAs that we've done over the last couple of years, or you want something more modern, including a 27-inch 7-string or a 25.5-inch 6, those are included in that run. That's sort of the key spec. They're tricked out, roasted flame maple, everything super rad. Again, check out the spec online. But the big sort of shining thing there is every finish comes in 6-string or 7-string.
Right.
6 strings are 25.5-inch scale. 7 strings are 27-inch scale. So we really built the 6s for 6 players and the 7 for 7 players so that you can really cover all the ground you want.
And now's the time to grab a deposit on one of those, because the 10% off coupon is able to be applied to those as well.
Yes.
And we only require 50% deposit to hold your spot for those.
Yes.
And I think we only have like a handful of those guitars in general left to secure. So those are going to be super cool. A lot of really cool finishes in those: gloss metallic rose gold, gloss metallic black, and then gloss jewel metallic white, which is kind of like a metallic white that has a specific type of chatoyance or type of reflection in it, because of the pink and green and pearl lescent particles in the white really make it kind of look special in certain angles.
Yeah.
So
definitely looks special in certain angles. Very cool.
So definitely check them out.
Yes. And like I said, big 7-string, 6-string thing. And like Joe said, important to know that all of those things, whatever's in stock, the 10% off sale does apply to those. So grab them now, because whatever's left won't be there much longer.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. Dylan says that jewel white looked absolutely gorgeous on the USA Seraphs. Thank you, man.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And it's the kind of thing that we try. Those sorts of finishes are difficult to capture. Yeah. Sorry if you hear all that. Apparently there's, I don't know, the end of the world outside right now.
It's a gigantic squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. Hunting for nuts.
Yeah, it's about 4 feet tall. You can see it from
It's about 4 feet tall.
It's Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it is Pennsylvania. You never know what you're going to run into. But yes, check them out. The 10% off sale applies to all that stuff. And the jewel white is super rad. It's the type of thing that's hard to photograph, hard to really communicate. So once we have them ready, we'll shoot a bunch of content with them too.
Yeah, we'll do some video stuff.
You may end up on the beggars can't be choosers end of things, because there won't be many available. Right. But whatever is available, we'll let you know when it comes out.
Plus, you can hit up Drop D Guitars. That's something to mention.
Yes, Drop D Guitars in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our boy Matt D, who is one of our favorite dealers and is just an all-around amazing guy. He worked with us on that run on the USA Seraph front, so he will have stuff in stock as well. So You'll get it from him. You'll get it from us. Whatever's easier, wherever you can be, just reach out to him or us with any questions. As always, info@balaguerguitars.com.
Yes.
You can email us any questions and we will get back to you relatively quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ian says ambient, vintage, and gold are gone. Yes. So the ambients right now are totally sold out. We, for those who don't know, sort of the way of the business, and it's the way we do things as well, is we typically order a little bit extra quantity because if you are building 100 guitars, there's a chance that a handful of them get dinged or damaged, or the finish doesn't turn out quite the way we want it to, or something like that when we're working on them. So we cover those with those. Now, if everything's great, those will become available. And we'll let everyone know. We always let everyone know when that stuff becomes a thing.
Yeah.
We typically let the Facebook discussion group know first, as well as anyone subscribed to the newsletter.
Yeah.
So you'll see those things first. If you are either in the group, subscribe to the newsletter, which you can do on the website, or both.
Yeah.
But we do make those available. So if they are available, you'll see more stock.
I also think it's important to note that a lot of our dealers have pre-ordered those same guitars. So
yes,
just because they're out of stock on our website doesn't mean you can't go over to insert dealer here and see some of those pre-order slots potentially still available. So I would shoot us an email, or you can go to our dealer page and look up what dealers are closest to you. And I know that there's even some international distributors and dealers that have some of these on order as well. So just something to mention.
Yep. And always check out the dealer page. We work with the best people in the industry. So if we ever don't have anything in stock, there's a strong chance that they do if they aren't also sold out. But yes, for now, none available from us. Lauren, would you guys consider doing some kind of limited series for the new headless models?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely on the table to discuss. I think Jake and I were actually just pinging some ideas back and forth earlier today about if we were to put something into production, whether it was just a very limited run of even guitars to just showcase at a trade show, or to have here at the shop so people could actually get a chance to hold them and play our headless models. So it's definitely something we have started discussing. It's brand new for us, so it's, we're just in the early stages of chatting about that. But that may be a good thread to start in the Facebook group, Lauren, if you want to, take that upon yourself to start a poll or something. Be good to hear what everyone else thinks about what something like that could look like.
Yeah, I like it. That's also a killer segue into the headless models. So those of you who are around will know that about a week ago, we released with probably my personal favorite ad work we've ever done, or artwork that we've ever done, asset work, the headless Tartarus.
Oh.
So we're going to get to the next part too. The Tartarus is, for those who don't know, it's an X shape that we've made for years now. Devin Scheidecker had a signature version of it. We still build them all the time. We've had some requests for the headless version. Basically, the headless models that we were building before the new releases, the Vega and the Anomaly, definitely have like a modern leaning look to them. You can spec them out classically, but I think naturally they're a little more modern leaning. The Tartarus was like, we wanted the same sort of vibe, but like metal, basically.
Yeah, and compact. I mean, I think that's the whole approach to the headless phenomena, or like the headless movement in instrument manufacturing in general and design, is it's just like making guitars more ergonomic, more compact.
Yes.
For travel, for, maybe you live in a studio apartment in Manhattan and you don't have a lot of room.
For your 30-inch baritone,
right?
That you're sticking out the window while you're practicing.
So you want something that's super small, or you're in a touring band, or you have a bad back.
Yeah.
Like there's tons of applications for it, and there's a reason why Ned Steinberger back in the 80s became so successful and such a pioneer in the headless instrument design that it stuck around. So I think it's the first of many iterations that we're going to start kind of taking a second look at. and seeing if there's any possibility of converting some of our models into headless models.
Yes, and that was what we did when we released the second headless
That's
model,
right.
which we just released today.
So imagine there's no headstock past my hand here.
Yes, his monster head.
Yeah, there's a
So headless growler.
Yes. Yeah, so the headless growler was something that we did in 2016 as a
long time ago.
one-off showpiece for the Summer NAMM show in Nashville. And surprisingly, even in Nashville, it went over incredibly well. My intent was to not put it into production back then, but to just do something unique for the show. And yeah, it took us quite some time to come back around to it. But I think the natural progression of the business and how things have kind of grown, I think it's cool to be able to offer something that isn't your typical headless guitar shape.
Yeah.
Because I think we care so much about the offset style of most of our models,
yeah,
that we didn't want to lose sight of you know, that specific factor when doing another headless shape.
Right.
And I already had all the design work done for the headless growler. I made a few minor adjustments for this newest version, but it's, you know, we don't have one here to show you, but yeah, it's the same silhouette as this guitar. It's the same silhouette, same size, body as the growler. There's just a ramp in the back here that slopes down, and these parts of the body are kind of carved out. You can go on our website right now and build one in the Select Custom Configurator and see what I'm talking about. But the idea was for it to just feel like a normal guitar on your lap or on a strap. You just have the advantage of having no headstock and having a more compact guitar.
Yeah.
And I think that still allows you to retain a lot of the classic aesthetics that this body shape tends to have inherently. Yes. But you can kind of start getting a bit outside of that box, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the headless growler, I think the anomaly in the Vega definitely exists where we want them to. The Tartarus exists where we want it to. I think the headless growler specifically is something that you don't really see that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I think I can remember when Joe was like, hey, we're going to do this. And I was like, oh man, that's rad. Because it is, like he was saying, the same shape. So it doesn't feel like you have to give up the aesthetic and the ergonomic of like a classic offset shape, but you still get this modern vibe, compact, physical dimension and all of the stuff. And if you want to go like true vintage modern and spec it out, if you want to do Tony P's spec and just cut the headstock off, you can do that and you'll have that vibe. And it's something that we haven't offered since we did that one-off. Mm-hmm. And we've never offered it as a production thing or a Select Custom thing. And it's just not a common approach to that style of guitar. And I think that it's special in what it does. It does, yeah. It really is exemplary, an exemplary example of what we like to do, of what your designs are, which is this vintage aesthetic, modern playability. Like all of that stuff just fits so well with the headless growler that I think, like Joe said, it took us a minute to come around to it.
Yeah.
But when I said, when Joe was like, yeah, I think we're going to do this, I just couldn't help. It was as if the pieces just fell together. I couldn't believe that we had waited so long to do it. Yeah. Because it fits that thing so well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the initial thought of like, are there people out there that really do want a headless, offset J style guitar?
Right.
Because, the inspiration is pretty apparent where the growler was kind of inspired by or born from. But I think sometimes, not to sound too pretentious or anything, but like sometimes you have to do things that are risky and like, yeah, you don't know if people are going to latch onto it or not, because it's new and different and exciting. And that's really why I wanted to do it, and why I think a lot of people on Facebook and Instagram are already pretty stoked on it. And yeah, I think it's only a matter of time until we start getting some real examples out there. And I think people will just become more inspired by it when they start seeing different configurations. And I would love to see like a fusion player playing one that has no pick guard, a humbucker in the bridge, a single coil on the neck with a hip shot, headless tremolo, flat, some kind of opaque finish or something with a highly figured board and neck. And then you can kind of flip it on the opposite end and do something extremely modern for metal or something else. So I think there's a lot of applications for it that could be pretty rad.
Agreed. I do. Interesting. Our monitoring speaker appears to have turned itself off, so I'll have to get up and turn that on in a second. But it's funny how that happens. So yes, that is basically the spiel. So check them out. They're both in the builder, the Headless Tartarus, the Headless Growler. All the specs available. You can go check it out, build your own. Drop your mock-up in the Facebook discussion group so that we can see it.
Yes.
Chat on it, share them. Super cool. Kai says generally not a headless guitar guy, but I love the scoop rather than cutting away the whole body.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ramp definitely, which we affectionately call it the ramp. The ramp, it's a different approach, right? Like Joe said, the silhouette is the same. You don't lose all that body mass, and it still looks classically styled. So yeah, definitely a cool, and all props to Joe for the design, but definitely a cool take. Yes, Lauren says she's the headless freak of the community. That's true.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, we say that with the utmost love. Lauren has always championed the headless Balaguer range, which is amazing. Kai says, oh yeah, you know what? I saw that. Andertons did like a headless horseman ad thing. And Kai's basically saying that they ripped us off. But, it's, if anything, we would be flattered that Andertons decided to jack our assets.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's whatever. It'd be what it do. Gotta have that headless help. You know what I'm saying? Headless Growler feels unique in the space for sure, and goes hard AF. Lauren says, yes, thank you. It does. We agree. Greg Schneider, yo, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's up, Greg?
Greg, longtime friend of the brand, ultimate hang guy, and dropping in the NAMM stuff.
Purple boy.
He says the NAMM booth is just going to be everything headless, including the people. Yeah, that would be a dream come true. If I could leave my head at the room and it can recover while my body does all the work at the booth, that would be great.
That's the way to do it.
Also, we will be at NAMM this year. Heads up. Early heads up.
Yes.
I think we talked about that a bit in the last live stream, but we will be there. So see everyone there. If you can make it, come visit us. Red Growler with the Perloid pickguard, going to be living rent-free in my head for a while. Yeah, that was a sick mock-up. Definitely like that. Kai says, speaking of fusion bass headless would be sweet.
Ooh, that would.
That would be sweet. John Vocal, yo, what up? I'm bad.
What's up, John?
Yeah, you are late. It is your bad. NAMM Guillotine, yes. Patented 2025.
Yeah.
You can come to the Balaguer booth and we will behead you for free.
Yeah.
But you have to allow us to film it and turn it into content.
Wow, that's very morbid.
Headless Grace coming in 2035, Greg says.
Shout out to John, though, also longtime friend and artist of Balaguer Guitars.
Yes.
His band Blank Slate, him and Hannah, they just released a new single, so go check that out.
Yes. Lauren actually says Blank Slate is a jam, John. Yeah, the new Blank Slate. Yeah, be sure to check it out. He and Hannah Bosno, both artists, both sick players, awesome people, and Blank Slate's always been killer, and the new release is bomb. It's a journey, which is awesome. I was listening to it and talking to him about it, and texturally, it's really great. Like it doesn't feel stale. It doesn't just sit in one place. It has a lot of movement to it, which is really cool. Texturally, tonally, the whole thing.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
Definitely check it out.
Yep.
Kai says, headless this, headless that. When are we getting headed Vega? That's what we'll do. We'll put headstocks on the headless.
I don't think that's ever going to be
reverse Halloween. We'll wait till Easter to do that. Risen from the grave.
It's funny.
John says, Jake, I will never get tired of the proper French pronunciation of Hannah's name. Oh, I know. I do that. I'm sorry. It's
as long as you don't say mozzarella, like how actual Italian people say mozzarella.
Yeah. Mozzarella.
Yeah.
And then
it's like mozzarella.
Mozzarella. I can't even do it because I'm not from.
If you're not from Italy, do not say that.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry.
It's like how you can't call capicola gabagool, unless you're either from Jersey or Italian.
Right.
Like,
There's so many rules.
Yeah, there are a lot of rules. I
Yeah.
learned all those rules when I first moved here, so I just like
Yeah.
kind of don't try to go nuts. Thank you, man. So that was the catch up on everything. Everyone is now officially caught up.
Yes.
You've been caught. You are up.
Get yourself up.
Get yourself up. And man, that squirrel's back. And
It's driving a truck now.
seriously. And so now we're going to jump into the conversation that I think we're all here for, which is baritone 6 strings versus 7 strings.
Yes.
Now, huge disclaimer.
But we need sound.
Yes, we do. I'm going to get up and do that right now. Huge disclaimer. Oh, wait. You have to put my strap.
Huge disclaimer, Jake said.
Huge disclaimer. They're both great. It's not actually versus.
They're both great. Yeah. We're going to get into our own opinions about baritone 6 strings, 7 strings. We'd love to hear from everyone in the chat, what they think, obviously. But there are certain applications for both. Cool.
Okay, much better. We have sound again in the room. So, yes, what we were saying, huge disclaimer. Obviously, you can clickbait the living daylights out of baritone 6s versus 7s. That was not our intent, nor is it ever our intent, because it's totally dependent on your situation.
Yeah.
It's a personal preference thing. So let's get that disclaimer out of the way, which is that it is completely subjective. There are no right answers. It is totally whatever you want to do. Some, as you'll see, might lean better into certain applications, 7 versus 6 baritone. But the reality is you can get a 7-string baritone or an 8-string short scale, or like there are a million different ways to do this. But this is the conversation that came up in the group earlier this week. Mm-hmm. And it's the conversation that we probably see the most around, usually it's because I want to tune lower and I'm considering either a 7-string or a 6-string baritone. Which one would I take and why?
Right.
So we started off sort of doing the whole, are you team 6 or team 7 thing, building the resentment, creating conflict. And now we're going to resolve it. Now we're going to work to resolve it. Before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to play the same riff from the intro of the live stream. I'm going to let Joe play it, and then I'm going to play it, and listen to the difference. So this Tony P Growler is a 27-inch scale, 6-string, baritone scale 6. This 7-string is 26.5-inch. So it is a baritone scale 7, but it's not as long a baritone scale as that. And we're both tuned to drop A flat. So we're in the same tuning. Mm-hmm. If we hit the same open string, same tuning. So we're going to play that intro riff, and you're going to hear the difference between these two guitars. And it's pretty emblematic. So we do have different pickups. There are other differences, but listen to the attack on the string. Listen to the thickness in the tone overall. Those are the things that are really going to kind of give it away. And we'll riff a bit.
So this guitar is a Farrell humbucker. Jake has a Trenio bucker in the bridge, correct?
Lauren, thanks for stopping in. Have a good rest of your weekend, or have a good weekend. Sorry. Go ahead. Lauren said she was leaving.
Oh, okay. Bye, Lauren. I was just confirming, you have a Trenio bucker in your guitar, right?
Yes.
Okay. I have a Farrell. I believe it's like 54 to 11 set on here right now in drop A flat. Yep. You are also in drop A flat. But what's your string set?
So I'm 11 to 48 on the regular 6, and then I have a 64 on the bottom.
Okay.
So that right there is a reason why having a longer scale might be a benefit if you like a tighter feel, because he can, on a baritone 6 that's got a longer scale than a 7, you can use lighter strings to get the same feeling of tension. In a normal scale or more normal scale like this, I have to use a heavier string to get the same feel, to help stay in tune, help preserve the intonation, and certainly get a tighter feel if I just want it.
For sure. Cool.
Let's do it. So I'm going to let you riff on that, the rhythm, and then I'll do the same thing. So it's a good example. I could feel it, I can hear it, especially in the room, but it's such a difference that it should come through very clearly for all
Yeah.
of y'all as well. Which is, for instance, when I play, and I'm gonna leave the mics on, so ignore the string noise for this part, but like when I play you can hear that like, whoa, there's a very low end, what people will often affectionately or hilariously refer to as the wow, which is that factor of like, it's a very like guttural, low,
It's
heavy
a bass resonance.
Yeah. But now when Joe does it, it's way tighter. You still have that low end, but it's definitely not going to do the same sort of like floppy wow low end thing. And I don't mean floppy in feel. I mean the sound is looser because it's heavier, it's thicker.
Right.
More of the bass, more of the low mid. That's typically what you're going to get with a 7 over a 6. Now that could be good, that could be bad for what you're trying to do. If you want a doomier sound, having the 7 string that's got all that low end content and all that big noise might be what you want. But if you want something tighter, thrashier, but still in lower tunings or anything like that, the 6 might give you more, certainly if it's a baritone 6 compared to a standard scale 7.
Yeah.
It's going to give you a tighter feel, a tighter sound, more aggression in the sound, and less of that low mid bass content.
There's way more higher mids going on that make it sound more stringy, if that makes any sense. Like you can actually hear when I'm doing single note separation type riffs, and then you'll be able to do the same thing right after me. You'll hear it even more so.
Yeah, let's do that real quick.
Yeah, so it definitely sounds a bit darker on Jake's guitar, but has more fullness, lower end response, however you want to kind of articulate that. But on the growler baritone, it's, I guess, thinner, you could say, more high in treble,
tighter, brighter,
etc. But when you're actually playing it and feeling the vibrations of the neck and the body, it doesn't feel thin. It feels thick and low and girthy, whatever you want to, whatever adjective you want to give it. But so it's not like completely without that. It just, from a tonal perspective, I can immediately hear the thicker tone from the 7 string in the room. So yeah, if that's important to you, then I would say gravitate towards a 7 string. I think there's ways to get closer to that with a baritone 6 string with thicker strings or even a longer scale length.
Right.
But at that point, you're kind of just using a slider, because if you have a scale length like 27, like we do here on the growler, or even slightly shorter, 26.5 on the 7 string, but on a 6 string, you could put thicker strings on it and get closer to that sound.
Yes.
Or you could go longer, like a 30-inch scale guitar, 6 string, and have, I guess, from a tension standpoint, lighter strings than you typically would have on a 30-inch scale 6 string, and you would still get closer to the 7 string. I think it just comes down to preference and kind of how you want your instrument to feel, because when you start getting past, I think, the 27-inch scale mark, it starts to feel like a different type of instrument. Not a bass, but definitely longer than a guitar. I mean, I'm almost 6 foot. just shy of it, like an inch and a half. So having this guitar on me right here, you can see on camera where the neck sits. You know, if I'm playing like this, you know, it's still not incredibly far away.
Right.
But if you add another 2 inches onto here,
Yeah.
it
Starts to feel long.
It starts to feel long, yeah. So I think the 27-inch scale mark, at least for the growler body, that all can change if you're using a different body shape, and that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, different body shape, different bridge type, those sorts of things will give you a very different feel, different neck construction.
Right.
All of that sort of moves the feel around a little bit, and I think that's a sort of a good way of saying that it's a spectrum, scale thing, right? Like nothing does everything, but the more you play and the more you experiment with it, the more you sort of find what works for you with the tension, the tone, the setup. Like for me, I mean, this is my personal 7-string. I've owned it for 8 months now, 7 or 8 months now, maybe not even that long. And I've finally got comfortable playing the 7. Like I feel natural on it, and that's great because it's awesome. It rips. If you made me choose, I would choose a 6-string baritone. Just honestly, half of it is just the familiarity of it, but I also don't have very big hands. That's another thing some people consider. I saw someone comment that in the Facebook discussion group. I don't like 7 strings because I don't have big hands.
Right.
You don't need big hands to play a 7-string, to be perfectly clear. I do not have big hands, and I play a 7 just fine, I think. But it's definitely a thing. You know, I like a 6-string. I like being able to rap a little more, feel a little tighter, attack the guitar a little more without worrying as much that I'm going to either start to stress my hand out or bend myself sharp with my right hand because I'm a very heavy-handed player. Now, like we were saying, you can get baritone 7s that sort of give you both things, but you're still playing a 7. It's still a different feel. It's still a different approach. And it really depends on what you're trying to do with it, what sort of sound you like, what sort of feel you like. There's no wrong answer. Some people really lean into the extended range of the 7. They want to be able to play 6-string stuff and then just have more on the low end.
Yeah.
And that's okay, you know, obviously, but it's a different way of approaching it than say like the way that I approach the 7, where I have the 6-string basically set up like a 6-string, and I think of it like a 6-string. And then I've got a 7th string that's drop tuned, so it's really just for rhythm stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're, let's say you play in a genre of music, or the way you play, you're typically in standard tuning. So you get a 7-string that's in standard tuning. So you have your 6 strings, E, A, D, G, B, E, and then you have a low B string, and you're playing technical music, or you're playing jazz, or whatever. I mean, you're adding another, if you have 24 frets, another 25 notes into your repertoire. So like there's the advantage of that where you don't get that from a baritone 6-string. A baritone 6-string, you have what you have. You have the strings you have. You don't have any extra strings or extra notes. So the 7-string as an instrument really allows you to have more dynamic, you know, writing and creativity. That's another, you know, kind of argument or perspective you could throw out there. Because even if you're in a drop tuning like Jake is now on his 7-string, the relation of the notes and the intervals, those are different than tuning to A flat, drop A flat on a 6-string. So
there is a learning curve, largely because your 3rd string is in a different place on each guitar.
Yeah, so that is also something to keep in mind.
Yeah, which, you know, some people like me who have caveman brains are like, I just picking up a 6-string, something that I'm familiar with. I know the intervals, I know the positions, I know all of that. And even though I've gotten comfortable with all of that on the 7, there's still something natural about just picking up a 6. I hope to change that. I keep playing a 7, hoping, well, not just hoping, working toward being completely comfortable on it, because I feel comfortable, but 1 in 10 times I'm like, oh, I mean, I did it today. I was doing, you know, a goofball thing, and I played it like I'd play it on a 6. And on the 3rd interval, you end up a half step high, and you're like playing a diminished chord instead of, or an augmented chord instead of playing like a nice chord.
Right.
And you're like, wow, that sounds really bad. But maybe that's cool. Like maybe I think it's similar to open tunings, right? Something you can do to sort of break out of your traditional playing stuff that you've gotten used to, and sort of push you in a different direction and get different tones and different, you know, just sort of a different inspiration for the whole thing, which is very cool.
Should probably check chat.
I was gonna say, let's catch up on some questions. You should check chat.
My eyesight's not good enough.
Yeah,
we need a big monitor on the wall.
We
or
do,
something.
yeah, just like a 80-inch TV with just chat on it. Let's see. Dylan says that Squirrel wants to pre-order that T-bar. Yeah, you're right.
Something.
Everybody does.
Trying to get our
Brandon,
word.
sorry I'm late. What's up, guys? Hey, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Kai says more important disclaimer: 6 strings were better. Well, hey man, I don't know.
Shots have been fired.
I've got my 7 in drop A flat, but I've flattened the G. Oh, making it a nice transition from 6s. So that's cool. So he basically created that third that we're talking about where things start to transition. He's flattened it so that he can play the same shapes. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or some of the same shapes. That's a cool touch. Dylan says, our 30-inch, oh, my computer. Are 30-inch baritones used mainly for entire octave down tuning? That's a good question.
Not always. I mean, I think that's kind of where it started.
Yeah, with bass 6s back in the day.
Yeah, you know, Fender started the whole bass 6 thing. You know, even the Beatles, I think,
I was gonna say, shout out to John Lennon.
Yeah, I think they were even rocking those. And
when Paul was playing guitar, John was playing a bass 6 to play bass. And it's funny, they did it in recordings, and you watch videos of them, and you always in your brain associate Paul with the bass, and then you see John Lennon playing this bass 6, and it sounds just like a bass.
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah,
so I think that's you know, traditionally what you would expect, but we've done tons of 30-inch scale builds that they're an E1, you know,
an octave down,
or they're even lower, or some we've done. I think we've done builds like in drop G. Drop A flat, that people just want lighter tension on their longer scale length guitar. They don't want to have to, you know, use 80 or 90 gauge strings,
railroad ties for strings.
And with that, you get a clearer sounding baritone guitar.
Heavier strings give you a darker sound.
Yes,
they muddy the sound up a little bit.
That is definitely a proven thing. So
that is an objective thing.
Yeah, but so yeah, no, it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and like Joe said, you know, typically you'll see lower tunings like starting at something like drop G, drop F, getting into E1, D1 even, like those sorts of things. That's typically what the modern player, that sounds horrible and pretentious and really dumb, but that's typically what people are doing with them. But like Joe said, some people will get them for more standard tunings like drop A or drop A flat, just so they don't have to use massive strings. Good question though. Kai says, yeah, 30 was popularized by Fender. Yep, octave down. Definitely preferring, Kai says, definitely preferring the sounds of the baritone, tighter and less wump. Yes, that's that thing we were talking about, that like, it's a very, it's the wow, the wump. There's like an air, there's a movement to it.
Yeah, wow, TM.
Yeah,
TM. BWOW.
Yes.
Trademark.
LCAS. Like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, got him.
Wow.
Yeah, it really is just about what works for you.
Wow.
Brandon says, I think I prefer the growler sound, to be honest. That's a fair point. And the truth is, most of the time I'd agree with you, honestly. I think both of these guitars were built to do different things and sound different. Yeah. I would probably tweak something about that to get it like a little more body in the sound, just for me personally. But I also like heavier strings, so heavier strings might do that for me, and I might not need to change pickups or change anything like that. So that's like, again, we're back to the spectrum thing, right? Is all of those things affect what your final tone is: the string gauge, the tuning, the scale length, the pickups, the amp, the whole thing. So it really is about what works for you in your rig. That's a good question, though. Let us know what you prefer. We're curious, because we think they both sound great. But if you have a preference over one of these, or if you like one for the other, or for not, aesthetics are allowed, but we're going more for tone. Let us know.
Yeah.
Kai says pickup construction also becomes a factor. Absolutely. Not just the pickup itself, but where it's located along the string width matters. John says, where does, in your opinion, the ideological limit hit? For example, you guys know I get real low with my baritone, drop E, and I use a whammy to go lower. I have tiny pathetic hands. My 7 is fine. Can't do an 8 string. Yeah, I know the vibe. Shout out. It's a struggle. So what John's asking, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, but is, basically you're trying to do a thing with each of these guitars. Where are you pushing one so far that you're like, it's just not really working anymore? You're spending more time fighting against the guitar than you are getting what you want out of it.
Well, I think it really comes down to scale length and string gauge, in my opinion, because I don't believe like a 6 string has a limitation. If we're talking baritone 6 strings, has a limitation that is stunted versus a 7 string, because we're talking about a wider fingerboard and an extra string. If we take that out of the equation and the scale length is the same length, I don't think there's some kind of limitation there. I think it really has to do with, obviously, if you have a 27-inch scale guitar like I have here, and you want this to be in drop D1 or E1, and
an octave down below standard.
Right.
E
so
E.
think of a bass guitar, but you tune the bass guitar to drop D.
Yeah.
You're going to have to put at least an 86 or a 90 gauge string on the bottom E or D for it to not only intonate correctly, but to have a appropriate tension. And at that point, you're darkening the tone. It's kind of adjusting the variables within your guitar to kind of pigeonhole yourself into a very specific thing.
Yes.
Now, if you extend that out to 30-inch scale, whether it's a 6 or a 7 string, I think the possibilities are much wider, and it's not really contingent on a string count at that point. It's just contingent on what values you're putting in, what tuning, what string gauges. Because we have done 30-inch scale guitars before in drop C.
As in like
one.
Regular. Oh, yes.
No, drop C1. So it was CGC, FAD, or something like that. It may have been an open C tuning. I can't remember.
Shout out Devin Townsend.
But it was an octave down. And I remember the guitar needing to have, I think it was like 100 or just over 100 gauge string on the bottom.
Basically bass strings at that point.
Which is all doable. Like the nut can be cut correctly. Hopefully it has a bridge that has enough intonation range that it can intonate correctly. So I think it's the sum of its parts that will kind of dwindle down.
And I do think it's worth saying too that the further away you go from normal spec, the easier it is to do the things that aren't normal. So if you're looking to do crazy low tunings and stuff like that, and you're trying to use a 24 3/4-inch like vintage spec guitar, you're going to be fighting it all the time. It's just not made to do that. It's not that you can't do it. It's just not made to do it. Versus something that is 28.5-inch scale or 30-inch scale with a modern bridge with additional intonation adjustment ability, a flatter fingerboard, some of the things that we do, shout out, shameless plug, but like those sorts of things, the reason we do them and the reason lots of modern builders like those sorts of spec is because you do give yourself that versatility. You can build a 27-inch growler that looks like this. If you put this on a wall and someone who'd never seen a guitar walk in, they'd be like, damn, that's cool. Yeah. It looks vintagey. It doesn't look like a modern guitar, but it's 27-inch scale. It has modern pickups. It has a modern bridge. You could set this up to play Beatles covers all day long and you'd be okay. And I would like you because the Beatles rule. Or you could set this up in drop G with heavier strings and do that too, because it's built to do both. And that's, I think, where, at least in my opinion, if there is some limit, and it's not a limit, it's not a hard ceiling, but I do think that you, at some point, you get to a place where you're so far away from what you're trying to do that you're knowingly or otherwise just making it really difficult for yourself, which to me can be uninspiring. I'd rather have something that I know can do the things that I want it to do, and I'm good. You know, I built this 7-string at a 26.5-inch scale on purpose. There are cases that I prefer 27. There are cases that I prefer 25.5. But I wanted this to split the difference and be able to do a little bit of both. And you can do that too. You know, it's all a compromise. It's all a spectrum. But it goes a long way. And really, there are no limits. But I think the further you get away from what you're trying to do, just the more you're going to be fighting it, which, you know, can be uninspiring. Not good, not bad, just might not work for you.
And it might be worth just, if you're unsure of all of this and you're looking to place an order, just shoot us an email. And we'd be happy to talk to you on the phone or shoot you an email back and try and hone in on exactly what you're going for. And we can give you our opinions on that. And we've done that quite a bit. And it's been a good process, because I think a lot of people, when they want to order their first baritone guitar or they want to order their first 7-string, there are a lot of threads that have a lot of misinformation on the internet. And I'm not saying we hold all the correct information, but I can tell you the things that are incorrect, and Jay can as well. And like, if you reach out to us, we can at least start steering you in the direction so you get a guitar that does exactly what you want it to do.
Yeah, there are almost no wrong answers, and you literally took the words out of my mouth, which is, there is a lot of misinformation out there. People have opinions about this stuff when they don't know jack about any of this stuff. And that's okay. Welcome to the internet. But at the same time, a lot of it's bullshit. And if you want the help, we're here to help. And that's all we're here to do. We're not shilling. There's nothing like that. If you reach out and you don't order a Balaguer, that's okay. We're just happy that you reached out, that you're interested, and that we can talk about it. So don't ever feel like you can't reach out, because that stuff can be overwhelming, and we see those questions a lot. So reach out. info@BalaguerGuitars.com, or at the Facebook discussion group, Balaguer Guitars Facebook discussion group, or in the chat every other Friday at 2:30 p.m. on YouTube. Brandon says, what's your most popular scale length you see come through the builder? 25.5-inch scale.
Yeah, 25.5. But if we're talking about baritone, 27 for sure. For sure. Because I think it fits squarely in the middle of, you know, the typical scale lengths that we do that are standard, 24 3/4 and 25.5. And then you start getting into the slightly baritone, which is 26.5. And then we do the 28.5 and then the 30. So 27 is kind of right there in the middle. So that is the most popular baritone scale length. And I would say across the board for 7 and 6-string.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, I think that's
100%.
Definitely it.
Kai says, I've got massive hands, but some stretches are tough at 30. Yeah, it's true. We've I've only been playing 30-inch guitars, like bass. I played a bass 6 a million years ago, but yes, I'm a million years old. But me and John Lennon. But until I was at Balaguer, I didn't play 30-inch guitars regularly. Certainly not tuned for metal, like or any of that stuff. And it is a lot. Like, it is a big neck, because something that I think a lot of people don't know, when you extend the scale of a guitar, the center point is the center point of the string, right? Like your 12th fret is the same, but your frets end up being spaced further apart, because to find the correct note, the intonated note, as you lengthen the string, that space widens. So your fret ends up moving. Every fret moves a little bit, so you end up with a longer neck, essentially. Or you start with a longer neck, end up with wider spacing in the frets. So if you have very small hands, especially down here where you have a lot of space in the fret, between frets, it's like, it can be a lot. I know for me, more than a 27, because I have small hands and I start to feel it as well. Definitely on a 30, I feel it a little bit. if you're doing drop tune stuff and you're not doing big extended chord voicings, you won't find any problem with it. Like you will never have a problem with a 30-inch guitar. But if you're doing more of big stretch work or anything, it can be a lot, and you can make your hand tired. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't try it, but it may be something to consider.
Yeah, and it also pushes back the bridge placement as well. So that is another thing to keep in mind, because while I'm comfortably putting my hand here and playing a 27-inch scale guitar, the bridge would be slightly further back on a 30-inch scale. Not by much, but you have to think it extends
from the middle.
It extends like this.
Yeah.
And the fret placement, like Jake said, there are different measurements because they have to be from an intonation standpoint. So while the neck grows this way, it's not as far as you think.
Correct.
Because it's also
this
having
way.
to be compensated this way
Yes.
by the bridge placement, because the scale length, you have to remember, is not the length of the neck, it's the length of the string from the front of the nut, so on this side of the nut, on the fingerboard side, to the middle of the high E string saddle of the bridge.
Yep.
So, if this is 27 inches here, imagine if you're going to 30 inches, those 3 inches, you're splitting those 3 inches both ways.
Yep.
So it is long, for sure, 30 inches, but it's not unmanageable.
No, it's not.
And it, I don't have gigantic hands, but I don't have small hands, and I do just fine up to 30 up to 30-inch scale.
Yeah.
But it's it's not something I would choose to be a shredder on.
Well, and that's the flip side, right? Is down here where stuff spreads out and it gets harder to do bigger chord voicings, bigger chord voicings and stuff like that. Your frets are also further apart here.
Yes.
So if you're doing, like that stuff gets more difficult too. So whether you're playing leads or rhythms, it's just something to consider, because you essentially have to reach more no matter where you're playing.
Yeah.
Now, for playability's sake, it could be totally worth it. It just depends on what works for you.
Yeah. What else we got in here?
Dylan said, let's see. Hold on. Oops, chat's freaking out on me. Marvin, yo, what's up, dude? What's the lowest you can get on a 27-inch without sounding floppy? Marvin, shout out. F-flop. The truth is,
that low.
if you get heavier strings, you can go crazy low on a 27-inch guitar and it not be super floppy. But if you're talking about like with standard string gauges, like let's say an 11 to 54 or 11 to 56, something that a lot of people would use for a drop tune 27-inch guitar.
Probably like A flat or G.
Yeah, you could probably get to G and it would be okay. But if you're like me and you hit the guitar really hard, you'll be knocking the guitar sharp. Yeah,
we do a ton of 27-inch scale 6-string select customs where someone wants to tune to like drop F or drop F sharp. And we're getting into the 70s to the low 80s from a string gauge standpoint.
Because they want the tight feel.
So it's completely possible to go practically down to E1 on 27 inches. It's just you're going to have to put thicker strings on.
Yeah, you're going to have monster strings.
Yeah, and that's just going to affect everything else. So
yeah, which, again, worth saying, if you have tiny hands like me, you play, when you get to baritone scales, if you did the opposite, which is instead of baritone scaling, instead of extending the scale of the guitar, you just played super heavy strings on a normal scale length, you have to work harder for those too, because they're big freaking strings.
Yeah.
So that could also tire your hand out. And that's, again, why we say it's a spectrum. You sort of find the middle ground that works for you.
And you might need brighter pickups and other stuff.
Yeah. Also, shout out, Marvin hung out with me at Guitar Summit. Super rad guy.
Awesome.
Longtime friend. Yeah. So good to hear from you, dude. Dylan would love to set up a baritone in the funky 9-string tuning that After the Burial uses for Neo Soul.
Nice.
Yeah, that would be rad. I've only played a 9-string a couple times, and they're cool. It doesn't work for me in the same way that 8 strings don't really work for me personally, but I get it, and some people do some amazing stuff with them.
Yeah.
Kai says 80 gauge on a 30-inch sounds significantly better than a 90 gauge on a 27 inch.
Oh yeah,
I would
sure.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Once
it's
your
all about
string,
tension.
yeah, and once your strings get above 80, 85, you're having to start doing things like modify the tuner,
Yes.
really cut the nut in a way that you can't come back from.
Yeah.
Like again, the sacrifices, quote unquote, that
Mhm.
might not be a sacrifice for you if that's what you want to do, but typical sacrifices, things like that become more apparent the harder you have to work for that stuff.
And keep that in mind too. If you're ordering a select custom from us and you put in your custom gauge of strings and tuning, if it is larger than a 68 or a 70, I'm drilling out the tuner, I'm following the nut, and I'm making it as perfect as it can be for you before it gets to you. But that then means that if you go to a lighter gauge string,
you can't go back.
That is smaller than the slot kind of can handle from a height standpoint, you're going to need a new nut made.
Which is not the end of the world,
no,
to be clear.
And
but,
you know, a luthier can do that for you, but just something to keep in mind, because it is something that cannot be easily reversed yourself unless you have tech experience.
Accurate. John says we have a blank slate demo we really like in drop A1. So drop E with a whammy -7. And then he makes sure to say LOL because he knew we were going to laugh at it.
Nice. That's sick, though.
Yeah, that is sick.
That's super cool.
That's also a thing to talk about, too. Pitch shifting has become so ubiquitous, whether you're pitch shifting down from an already low tuning, because the further you go from the tuning, for those who don't know, pitch shifting is digital modulation of your guitar signal to drop or raise the tuning.
Yeah.
So if you're in drop C and you want to be in drop A, you would drop, every semitone down with your pitch shifter until you get to A, and then you leave it there.
Yeah.
As technology has gotten much better with those things, it used to be that it sounded funky. It started to sound really weird the further you got from the actual tuning of your guitar. Some cheaper stuff still does that. But a lot of the good stuff, like the Quad Cortex or the Line 6 stuff or the Fractal stuff, usually that stuff is good enough. The Digitech drop pedal is a classic for most people.
Sure.
That's a way to keep your tension, tune a certain way, but then when you need to go down, you don't have to use heavier strings. You don't need a baritone scale length that far. It would be my choice if I was gonna.
That's what I do.
Yeah, like if I'm gonna play in a 27 inch and I'm gonna be in drop B or something like that, like I'd rather just have it set up that way. And then if I need to be in drop F, I just pitch it down. Yeah,
when Jake and I jam after hours and he's using his 7-string, I don't own a 7-string, so
anymore.
I grab a 6-string and I already made a preset that has the transpose function, which is pitch shifting
in the Quad Cortex.
The Quad Cortex, and it drops me down to A flat, and it sounds great.
Yeah,
tracks well, and
it's something worth noting. The only way to get those low tunings is no longer just to own a guitar that does that. You can work your way around it, and for a lot of people, it's sort of the way now. Kai says, I love the low tunings for massive wow sounds, but the low interval limit starts becoming a problem. Yeah, it's true. And that's the thing, even now. Oh, Ken, yo, what's up? You did make it. Guitar is hot. Would love that in a 25-inch scale, he says. And he says, transpose is king.
Just stretch your arms a little bit every day for the next few weeks, and then you can just grab this one.
Exactly. For those who don't know, Ken, longtime friend of the brand, also in this band, The Man in the Machine. I'm happy. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's awesome because his band rules. Check him out.
Yes.
Kenny's a great dude and has been around the brand for a long time. Plays a sick Espada. Yes. And Kai's right. Even with the modern technology, the further you get from the standard sound, the greater the risk of what people will call artifacts or artifacting. So because it's digitally transposing your sound, sometimes it will add or subtract little things that wouldn't be in the tone.
Yeah.
And it's usually not a deal breaker, especially live. No one can hear that. But if you're playing by yourself and hearing the signal directly, or if you're tracking or doing studio work, that stuff shows up and you might not want it.
Yeah. When we saw Sleep Token live, like I had no idea that they pitch shift a lot of their stuff live.
Yeah.
So they don't have to have 8 different guitars or whatever, different tunings. So that's pretty cool.
It is cool. And it's nice, you know, obviously, again, you don't want to get super far away. So maybe you have a 25 and a half in E flat, maybe you have a 26 and a half in drop C, a 27 in drop B. Like you can start there and then transpose up or down depending on what you want to do. And it opens the door to all of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Should we do some tone testing?
We should do some tone testing. I'm just going to burn through these real quick. John says, super helpful on picking specs for his currently secret baritone build that should be done next year, Bridge Choice especially. Shout out to the man, the myth, and the legend, Joe Balaguer, who knows everything about everything, life, the universe, and everything.
I just know enough to get by.
But seriously, and what John's talking about is what we talked about earlier. You know, reach out if you have questions. We will help you and make sure that we get you what you need. Mario says, who can't use an extra 3 inches? My man.
I didn't say
My man knows. I will say, as we all know, it's the motion in the ocean, baby. You know what I'm saying? It ain't the size of the wave, it's the motion in the ocean.
I get seasick.
Oh, I thought he was going to say he doesn't know. What he means is he doesn't know because he's got it covered. Kai says, I can comfortably do a 1-3-5 stretch at 30 inch, but not much further. Yeah, I mean, this is a 26 and a half, and I can comfortably, I could do it on a 27 for sure. 28 and a half pushing it, and probably couldn't on a 30. His tiny hands. Kenny says, love that shirt. Thank you, dude. Wasn't even paying attention that you were wearing it. Yeah, no, me neither. That's what makes it so fun. But yes, we should tone up. So if you have any specific questions about this stuff, drop them in the comments. Join the Facebook discussion group.
Yes.
Drop a comment in that conversation that's still ongoing. All that stuff. I think we've covered the basics of sort of why you would or wouldn't do either of these things, sort of what the differences are. We're going to jam a little bit, make some more noise. If you have anything else to drop it in. We'll get back to you before the end. I'll lightning round it.
Yeah.
Until then, if we don't talk to you again, thank you for hanging out. 10% off everything right now, part of the sale. Check it out on the website. That includes select customs. That includes anything on the website. Pre-orders for these.
Yep.
Pre-orders for USA Saros. It's 10% off everything. Check it out. All the other stuff is coming through. New headless models. Tartarus headless. Growler headless. Those are both 10% off as well if you want to order one of those. And you get 10% off. And you get 10% off. And you get 10% off. And yeah. So anyway, we hope everyone had a good time. Happy Friday. We hope everyone has a great weekend as well.
Yes.
The weather's cooling off, which is nice. It's been kind of warm.
Prepare yourself for spooky season.
Yeah, spooky season is upon us. I can't wait. And we're going to riff a little bit. We'll talk to you guys soon. Everyone have a great weekend.